Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 17th June 2016. The first article is related to the school system in India. If you observe the children, there is an extraordinary burden of education on them. Education is an learning to make an individual complete and to gain the pleasure of knowledge and understanding of self. So it has to be from all dimensions and it has to be complete. But the children bear an enormous expectations from parents and also society. Because of this, the education or marks have become the primary objective, and the life is being equated with success, and success of the students got equated with marks. So in such a narrow definition, huge pressure is being built onto the minds of the students, and for them education became equivalent to marks rather than an all-round development. Coming to the crushing weight of the exams. Now if you see, the success being reduced to a mere number. So in this context, from the right to education, if you observe, it has talked about continuous learning. So, but the Indian system is not ready for this continuous and comprehensive evaluation. So pass or fail system, that is what is being decided. So the strong authority-based education system and also authority-based society, hierarchy-based society, and marketization of the education, these can be cited as the reasons for having such a strong education system, such as biased education system against the interests of the students. Because in the market-oriented education system, what happens is this. In this case, the marks they become and the ranks they become marketable tools for the private educational institutions. So as more and more the marketable goods have increased, the stress on the students for gaining more and more marks from the schools and also the parents will increase. And coming to society, Indian society is inherently promotes the authoritarianism. Either if you take our caste system, even the schooling system, so the relationship between the teacher and student is not based on open learning, but it is based on authoritarianism. So in this context, if India has to lead the nations in education, it has to ensure for an open and free education system in this country. Now coming to the, with regard to the Delhi issue, you know that 21 MLAs of Delhi, they are appointed as the parliamentary secretaries. So in this case, how legal it is the question. The first thing is, there is a amendment bill which is passed, MLAs exemption or removal from disqualification act. So that is what has been passed by the Delhi Legislative Assembly. In spite of this, they are getting disqualified. Why? Because the bill states a retrospective implementation of this particular provisions. Now the procedure is, the President of India, the matter will be referred to Governor, and in the case of MP, it will be referred to President of India, and President has to refer the matter to the Election Commission. Now Election Commission has to give its judgment to the President or to the Governor in the case of the states, and then finally they will be stand disqualified. So this is what is the procedure. Now let us see the constitutionality of thing. No, you know that Indian constitution is based on the principle of separation of powers and checks and balances. The executive shall be made accountable to the legislature, and legislative oversight is very critical for smooth functioning of democracy. So in this context, if you make the MLAs as subordinates to the ministers or assistants to the ministers, the people who are supposed to regulate the ministers and the government of the day, who shall make them accountable, they are becoming their subordinates. And the second thing is, now if we observe the provisions, the office of profit has clearly mentioned, or Article 102, 191, it has clearly mentioned certain offices can be exempt by the parliament by law or by the state legislature by law to be deemed as offices of profit, not to be deemed as offices of profit. Now, Delhi legislature tried to do that, but however, finally what happened is, it has given a retrospective effect to the implementation of the law. That's why President of India has rejected to it. Now, in this context, when the matter of West Bengal went to the Calcutta High Court, and also matter of Jaya Bachchan and Sonia Gandhi, it went to Supreme Court, certain norms are laid down in defining an office of profit. That is, it shall not receive any payments from the executive, and the office shall not be under the direct control of the executive, and these norms need to be followed. And finally, you know that with regard to 91st Amendment Act, certain restrictions are imposed with regard to the total number of ministers in a government. It shall not be more than 15% of the total strength of the lower house. In Delhi case, according to 239 AA, it shall not be more than 10% of the total strength of the lower house. Now, the parliamentary secretaries are becoming a mechanism to bypass the total number of the ministers and to give the executive positions to various legislators. To create the employment to the politicians, this is what is being misused. So in this context, the article also talks about where the other places the legislative oversight is getting weakened. Now, if you observe MP Lords, these are the special funds which are allocated to member of parliament at his discretion, which he can spend. Now, if you take about this money is at the disposal of the district collector, who is part of the executive, and a work which is determined by MP, he has to recommend that to the district collector. From there, the funds will be disbursed. So, a spending of the finances is the responsibility of the executive, but however, the legislature has taken control of these funds, which is a part of the executive job. Again, this is also a loss of legislative oversight. And there is anti-defection law in which MP's voice has decreased. That's what the author says. It has come into 52nd Amendment Act. If any MLA or MP, if he is not towed to the line of the whip of the political party, he can be declared as disqualified under anti-defection law. So these are the things which we need to understand. So the permanent secretaries, they are not in accordance with the spirit of separation of powers. And added to that, it's a mechanism to bypass the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act, and which is limiting the total number of ministers. Now coming to this culling fields. Now you have the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. In this, endangered species are being kept in the Schedule 1. The Schedule 2, 3, 4, they consist of other wildlife animals. Now when these wild animals endangering a life are the various crops of the farmers, they can be declared as vermins. When they are declared as vermins, local individuals get the authority to kill them to protect themselves and their economic benefits. Now, to what extent culling is a solution? Here, a better approach is necessary for man and animal conflict. So, especially it requires understanding of the scientific information, animal behavior, and also socio-economic context in which it is operating. Now, as developmental projects are undertaking, most of the forests are becoming discontinuous. And the fields which are lying close to the forests, they are becoming the hot spots for these animal invasions. So in this context, you can identify a hot spot. So with regard to this hot spot, you can provide for specific protective mechanisms. Along with that, the safety measures such as fencing and providing for crop insurance for the crops which are being damaged by these animals. These can be more better solutions compared to killing or culling the particular animal. Coming to the street view of Google, you know that the government has rejected the street view of Google because of sensitivity of defense establishments. So, but however, the street view has its own advantages with regard to disaster management and promotion of tourism. So, Germany, Japan, all these also have brought in certain sensitivities against this street view. Even US had certain objections to the street view because of their sensitive military establishments. But however, they found one or the other way how these defense establishments have to be masked, or how the privacy considerations shall be addressed. If you take the benefits of this project into consideration, it means it also provides for we need to find the way for making this into operation. Now coming to the Prime Minister's address at Rajaswagnan Sangam. So it is a meeting of IRS officers in which Prime Minister addressed it to them. So his major points are increasing the two people in tax net to 10 crores. Now the basic reform which we have to bring up in our tax net is decrease the tax rate and increase the tax net. Now even 50% of the population of this country, among the people who are supposed to pay the taxes, they are not under tax net. So that's why the government, to raise its income, it is more taking the tax rate route rather than increasing the tax net. So the Prime Minister has pitched on the very important point, that is raising the tax net to 10 crores. That shall be the target for the tax authorities. Now coming to curbs on NGOs. The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, it is criticized that it has become an instrument in the hands of the government to curtail the freedoms of the civil society organizations. And the government is placing more and more organizations under prior referral list. It means that many stringent norms have to be followed, including visa restrictions, including prior disclosures of expenditure or prior plan of expenditure, everything to the government. And some certain NGOs are totally blocked from receiving the foreign funds. This is going to have a chilling effect on the functioning of these agencies. In this case, UN Special Rapporteur, he clearly said that it is against the liberal traditions of a democratic society. Now coming to President's Namibia visit, you know that India and Namibia signed a civil nuclear cooperation agreement in 2009. But however, Namibia is also a signatory of Africa Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty. So it is also called Pelindaba Treaty. So Namibia, though is the fourth largest producer of the uranium, it was not in a position to supply it to India because India is not a signatory of NPT. So in this context, during the President's trip to Namibia, so it has reiterated its commitment to India-Namibia Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. But it has requested India to develop similar kinds of agreement with most of the African countries so that it becomes easy for her to persuade to supply the uranium to India. Now coming to current account deficit contracts. The major reason for this contraction is the decrease in trade deficit, especially due to fallen prices. But worrisome trends are the service exports are decreasing for India. And on to the capital account front, the FDIs also have decreased. FIIs also showed an outflow, especially it is due to the maturity of the various NRI bonds, etc., which the government has to pay back. That's why FII outflow was visible in this particular quarter. Now coming to the Indian Express newspaper. Now we are covering the poverty, 25 years of poverty reforms and poverty reduction, and World Bank series or special report of the World Bank. Now what this report says is the poverty is decreased in rural area and also in urban area. The major is due to the growth in wages, and second is the non-farm income also increased onto the rural side. So, and the third thing, the dependency ratio has reduced. It means more young people were there and more hands are there for production. And finally, remittances also have come into India. It may be domestic remittances from the urban migrated people to the rural areas or international remittances, but the remittances have increased to the rural areas. So, urban to rural remittances, if they are increasing, means that shows there is a greater integration happening between urban and rural areas in India. And coming to mistrust in Manipur. Now, you all know that inner line permit, what does that mean? An inner line permit, it means that if anyone outsider wants to enter into that area, he has to get a permission. So he has to take a permission, and the outsider will not be given a chance to settle in that particular area. Now this inner line permit, it exists in Arunachal Pradesh, and then you have Nagaland, and then in between you have Manipur, and in the Manipur there is no inner line permit. After the Manipur, in Mizoram we have the inner line permit. So in this case, Why is it is not there in Manipur? The reason is the inner line permit was introduced by the Britishers, but Manipur at that point of time is ruled by a native ruler. That is the reason why it did not come under the inner line permit. So in this case, Manipur is demanding for the inner line permit, because if you see the Manipur, there is a valley region and then you also have a hill region. The valley region is dominated by Meiteis, and this entire valley it consists of the outsiders. So especially from Assam, Bengal, these people are getting settled in the valley region. So the demographic change is occurring, and also the very of the diseases which are unknown for natives are increasing. So that means the stress on the resources have increased. So Meiteis are demanding for an inner line permit in this area. And also, with regard to the recognition of the citizens of the Manipur, so recently the Manipur Assembly has passed the bills which are being rejected by the President of India. So what these bills say is this: the important among these bills, that is Manipur Protection of People Bill 2015. So a person to be identified as a person belonging to Manipur state, he shall have his names in 3 lists. That is the National Register of Citizens 1951, the Census Report 1951, and Village Directory of 1951. So at the time when the census were taken, these people, hill people who are not accessible, their census were not taken. Now because of this bill, the hill people fear that they might be recognized as non-Manipuris. So that's why hill people are opposing to this particular bill now. So again, another flaw in this is there is a hill area committee in Manipur, and anything which is affecting the life of these hill people, the hill area committee need to be consulted. But however, the Manipur Legislative Assembly passed it as a money bill which need not be consulted with this particular committee. So there it appears that there are certain clandestine this thing. And the accusation is most of the Manipur Legislative Assembly is dominated by Meiteis. So they are trying to curtail the hill people and their rights. That is what is the criticism over here. This is about today's newspaper. Thank you very much.